So we'll start out just talking a little amongst the panel, and then we will open it up to questions, if that's okay. And one thing Micah mentioned during his opening was that he wanted to learn a little more about the science of the green sea turtle. So, we might start there, and I might want to ask Terry if he could tell us a little about how the green sea turtle populations are doing these days.
Thank you, Stuart. I'm from the government, and I'm here to help you. No, in all seriousness, and I don't know if this microphone is going to stay up or not, but just to give you, Mike had a really good point that it's always nice to kind of know a little bit more about the panelists. I mean, we're probably these faceless bureaucrats here on this table, but we are actually just like you, human beings, and even though we do work for the government. I work for the U.S. Geological Survey, and actually that's pretty cool because my agency has absolutely no legal jurisdiction or authority or enforcement authority. We focus strictly on the science. So as a scientist for this agency, I have the privilege of really just being able to focus on the data and the science and let society worry about how to enforce things or how to regulate things or how to manage the wildlife. We just provide the science, which is pretty cool. So what do I do? Well, I'm a veterinarian and I'm a wildlife disease specialist. And I've been here since 1992. And what I do is I look at sick and dying wildlife, and you go, that's pretty gross. It's actually really cool because we get to look at all sorts of animals and terrestrial and marine ecosystems. We try to figure out why they die, and then we work with resource managers, both federal and nonprofit and state, to try to help them prevent and mitigate wildlife mortalities. When you think about Hawaii, we've got the highest per capita number of endangered species in the Union. So it's pretty important because every loss of free-ranging native animals we have here is really precious. And it's kind of analogous. Micah made the notation that our planet is sick and that the indigenous fauna are kind of like the indigenous people. And I really agree with that. We really have an obligation in our society to protect the native wildlife. Now, we're conservationists. Most of us in this room are conservationists. And having talked to several of my colleagues, oftentimes it's doom and gloom. Oh, the sky is falling. We're losing wildlife left and right. The invasive species are coming in and destroying everything. There's pollution in the ocean. And it's almost like you throw your hands up and go, geez, I mean, is there any respite to this? Is there any hope? And actually, there's a lot of good news in conservation in Hawaii. I've had the privilege of working with both terrestrial and marine wildlife in a variety of different places in the Pacific. And I can tell you for certain species, like the nene goose, the native nene goose, or the Laysan duck, things are looking really good for those animals. So it's not all doom and gloom. And I think this workshop here has been convened because the sea turtles is another great example of an incredible success story. Since they were listed in 1994, the summary of what's been happening with sea turtles is on this graph in this flyer that was handed out in this meeting. That graph here shows you the numbers of nesting females at French frigate shoals. For those who are not familiar, of course, probably most of you are since you're in this room, you know a lot about turtles, but green turtles, most of them nest at French frigate shoals, which is about 700 miles northwest of the main Hawaiian Islands. That's where the major nesting grounds are, and George Balaz has been feverishly working on sea turtles for the past 35 years, carefully documenting the numbers of nesting females. If you look at that graph and you do the statistics, and that's probably the biggest scientific gobbledygook word I'll probably use right now, 5% per year is what we're seeing an increase in sea turtles. So for those folks out there who are in the ocean, who've been here a long time and go, I'm seeing a lot more turtles here, this is the hard data to show you that, in fact, there are more sea turtles now than there ever were since the mid-'70s because of the Protection of the Endangered Species Act. That is really good news. I think it's really cool. And so I think it's something that we as a society in Hawaii should really celebrate. The other thing is that most of you have probably seen sometimes turtles with tumors, these fibropapilloma. Well, that is actually on the decline as well. And I'm even noticing this. I've only been here since 1995, and I've been a co-investigator, or 1992, and I've been a co-investigator with the Marine Turtle Research Program, mainly focusing on the health of sea turtles. And naturally, one of our big focus has been trying to understand the cause and the potential management of this tumor disease that we call fibropapilloma. And in the short time that I've been in Hawaii, I go out to Kaneohe Bay and do sea turtle captures. I do coral reef surveys out through the Hawaiian archipelago. And even I'm noticing, without even any hard data, that I'm having a hard time finding sea turtles with tumors, or harder time than I used to. Back in 1995, I could jump into Kaneohe Bay. I could pick up tumor turtles, no problem. Now I really have to hunt for them. Well, that's great news. And again, we have hard data to confirm this. Why? Because George Balaz and Molokai has been systematically trapping turtles since the early 1980s, and we've been able to look at the rate, the percentage of animals with fibropapillomatosis in Molokai, and that peaked in about the mid-1990s, and it's been going on a steady decrease since then. It doesn't mean the disease is going away, it doesn't mean it couldn't come back, but so far, it's really good news, and there's right now not very much evidence that it's really impacting turtle populations adversely. So I think overall, the news for sea turtles, for green turtles in Hawaii, are really cool and really good. And I'm really happy to hear that, because I hear a lot of doom and gloom in my field. I see a lot of dead and dying animals, so I'm really happy when I hear that a population is recovering. And if you have any more questions down the line, I'll be happy to try to answer them. But I'm hoping to learn a heck of a lot more about the societal process of sea turtle conservation than you will probably learn from me with the science of sea turtles. And I thank you for the privilege of being here and for being a member of this panel.